An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, changing, amending, and modifying the zoning map of the zoning code of the City of Jefferson by rezoning 2.07 acres from a combination of C1 neighborhood commercial and RU rural use to RS2 low-density residential and RU rural use for land addressed as 3110 Algoa Road, described as part of Survey Number 2680 and part of Section 22, Township 44 North, Range 11 West, Jefferson City, Cole County, Missouri.
Janice.
Thank you. This application came before the Planning and Zoning Commission in August. Actually, I think it came before the commission in September. This property was part of the Algoa area annexation in 2002, 2003, and it represents kind of a legacy zoning from that annexation plan. The proposal is now to build a single-family home on Algoa Road, and you can see by the map above that there's a convergence of various zoning districts in this vicinity. So the plan is to rezone these 3 tracts so that tracts B and C are rezoned to RS2 single-family residential, and tract A, which is currently zoned C1 neighborhood commercial, to rezone that to RU rural use. And that way it'll be used for agricultural purposes, which is what the land behind these tracts on Algoa Road are presently used for. Public hearing for this bill will be scheduled for October 15th in the council chamber at 6 p.m.
Any questions, Janice? All right, we'll have first reading of 2012-75.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, changing, amending, and modifying the zoning map of the zoning code of the City of Jefferson by rezoning 4.25 acres from C2 general commercial and PUD planned unit development to CO office commercial for land addressed as 305 and 307 Flora Drive, described as part of Section 13, Township 44 North, Range 12 West, Jefferson City, Cole County, Missouri.
Janice.
Thank you, Mayor. This application also came before the Planning and Zoning Commission on at their meeting in September. And this proposal would rezone the tract on Flora Drive, which is currently zoned a combination of C2 general commercial and PUD, to CO office commercial. Planning and Zoning Commission considered this at their meeting on September 13th and voted to approve. The public hearing is scheduled for October 15th at 6 p.m.
Any questions of Janice? Bob?
What under CO, what uses might be in there possibly?
The office uses allows a variety of office uses, daycare. It also allows assisted living facilities, and one of the proposer actually is proposing to construct either assisted living, daycare, or office, or maybe a combination of those uses on this property.
That property had come before us before as an office, apartment
That's
usage,
correct, yes.
Janice, I had a quick question. The neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
I know before, when there was going to be a development there, they were looking at a lot of apartments and stuff, and
Yep.
that was back when I was a 4th Ward councilman, and it was in the 4th Ward, and I know they were adamantly, they'd be a pretty good word to describe against it.
That's
How
correct.
are they now?
Yes. Well, it's my understanding, and we actually encouraged the applicant to discuss her proposal with the neighbors, and I suppose she did a pretty good job of convincing them about what she wanted to use this land for, because we didn't have anyone that attended the meeting at the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's not to say that you won't have some neighbors show up at the public hearing, but we didn't have any opposition expressed at the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Any more? Dr. Pope, go ahead.
Janice, were the residents on Tanner Bridge noticed on this?
Yes, if you look in your packet, you will see the notification area, and we actually notice 185 feet from the property. So all of those adjoining parcels there on Tanner Bridge Road were noticed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions of Janice? All right, seeing none, we'll have first reading of 2012-76.
An ordinance amending Chapter 21 and Chapter 35 of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by creating noise generation regulations.
Mr. Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm guessing the highlight of the night here, so I'll talk about this a little bit. This would replace the current, there's two places in the code where noise is discussed. One is in the nuisance code and the other is in the zoning code. This section, which you see in front of you, is proposed to replace what's in the nuisance code, and we would just delete the noise stuff out of the zoning code. And Ms. Smolin is absolutely correct. She did ask about where that ordinance came from, and when she asked at least twice, probably, neither Roger or I could remember, but I did pull it out. It was Bennington, Nebraska, if anyone wants to know, but it wasn't really pulled out for the sound numbers as much as how to address the code. Some of the important points to look at is the question that comes up, where do you measure from? Well, let me back up just a moment. The current code, in my mind, although there is a reference to 50 feet from the, if you can hear music 50 feet from the property line, it could be declared a nuisance. I don't think the language is strong enough to actually make it a good code violation. I'd rather replace it with something like this. And what this does is set actual decibel limits. And Ms. Mullen is again correct. If you look at it, if it's 10 decibels louder, it's 10 times as loud. Or 5 would be 5 times as loud. So we've replaced those kind of soft terms about hawking and yelling and that kind of thing and replaced them with actual decibel measures. And the decibel measures are found in 21-116. And it is divided up between daytime and nighttime, daytime being 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. essentially, and nighttime being 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. In commercial and industrial zones, the daytime would be 85 and the nighttime would be 60. The daytime would be 85 and the nighttime would be 80. In residential, it's 60 and 55. The point of measurement is a question that's always, it comes up. We've defined it as 5 feet from the property line from which the noise is emanating, or, and this kind of came about because of my discussion with Mr. Brownstein, or it can be measured from a point of a citizen complaint, so long as the complaint is no closer than 5 feet. And Mr. Brownstein had kind of indicated that he felt it, because, and certainly could be, if the noise is emanating from a location, it bounces off of walls, it could be louder at another point. And the goal was to say these were the limits to come off of the property. So we wanted to make sure that if it's actually louder someplace else, we measure it from that point. One thing that's been said here that's actually incorrect is they talk about it could be 10 decibels louder at night, but that's not actually the case. If you look at 216B1, it says the permitted sound level may be exceeded by 10 dBA for a cumulative period not to exceed 10 minutes of a given hour during daytime hours. So you can actually only go higher during the day. And I should say that in an earlier version of this, we had a couple of different levels where you could go 5 for half an hour, and 10 for, or go above 10 for 10 minutes. And had a conversation with the prosecutor, and he thought that would be too difficult to enforce. We didn't want to keep our officers out there for an hour with their measuring tool. So this would at least allow the officers to limit it to 10 minutes if they so chose. There are a number of exemptions, and I want to point out a couple of them because they're new from whenever you all saw it in earlier versions of this. We went through planning and zoning, and they mentioned that what about household uses such as lawn mowing and stuff like that. So under that 116, I guess it is, let me make sure. Yeah, 116C, we've got the exemptions from the noise code. And we've added, well, actually, let me just go through them if you'll indulge me. Noise is not directly under the control of the property owner. Noise is emanating from construction maintenance between 7 and 10, and that's actually tweaked the numbers there. So if someone's doing some construction, they're allowed to do it between those hours because an air gun may be too loud for that in a residential zone, but it's necessary, obviously, to build a house. Noises from safety signal warning devices or emergency pressure release valves, transient noises from moving sources, so essentially we're talking about cars. Or airplanes, I guess. Activity conducted in parks or private schools. Occasional outdoor events, provided such events are conducted pursuant to an appropriate license or permit issued by the proper department or agency. that's kind of the idea of the festival district. It has within it carved out that it's exempt from the noise code, and we put that in here. And I know in an earlier time, Mr. Brownstein had some concern about occasional outdoor events because it left the door open, but he's right about that when we allow that permitted events to be carved out here. Then noise emanating between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. if it's approved by the city administrator. And really, although it's lesser known, that's actually what the start of this ordinance came to, is there was some question about construction during the evening hours. And apparently in the past it had been done that the director of community development had authorized that. Well, of course, you're looking through the code, you don't find that anywhere. So we thought there might be special occasions where nighttime work might be necessary and appropriate, so we put that in. Then 8 and 9, we get to the planning and zoning suggestions, which is occasional household maintenance activities utilizing power equipment, including but not limited to lawnmowers, chainsaws, snow blowers, and home generator and power washer. Those things are all going to exceed your noise levels in a residential zone, but I think they're all kind of understood and accepted. And then someone at P&Z had suggested that what if you annex in a farm and that farm equipment will be too loud? So we added noise from agricultural activities conducted on a property properly utilized for agricultural activities. So if it was a farm and we brought it in and they're running their combines and such, they're still going to be able to do that. There is a variance procedure. So if there's a true hardship that a business has because they can't comply with the noise code, we've got some criteria set out there. There is an injunction procedure which would allow us to go to court, and I had trade a couple emails with someone. That's not really required to be in the code. Certainly that's available to the city anyway. We also have a provision in that injunction to allow a police officer to order the sound terminated upon probable cause a violation had occurred. It's a little dicier because we are essentially possibly opening ourselves up, but I think it's important to have that power in there. And I guess I wanted to point out that essentially the noise levels, they are all over the place. There are some that, where was it? Overland Park is very low. Kansas City is very high. It's what I'm gathered is it's a community standard, and you all are, at this point charged with determining what the community standard is. If you look in the bill summary, Roger Schwartz personally went out and measured a whole bunch of noises for you, and that's attached in the bill summary. So we've got residential dishwashers, car idling, and all these. It's worth looking at. I'd say a couple of them to note are the Thursday Night Live band at 30 feet was 105, so they're very loud. But you back off to 150 feet and it's still 96 or so. So definitely outdoor music can be very loud. Roger's also got the OSHA standards listed at the bottom of his list, and it goes. It depends on how long you listen to it and how loud it is, so those standards vary. And I guess I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
First of all, Drew, I want to thank you and staff for working on this as you have. How long have you been at this, Drew?
Oh, boy, I don't know. What do you think, Roger? 5-6 months? Maybe not quite that long, but I bet it's close.
3 to 4 for sure.
3 to 4.
Okay.
I should also mention, if I may,
Sure.
Heath Clarkson had come to talk to us also, and initially he was concerned a little bit about examples, DeLong's and Cole County Industries and some others, and so Roger went out and measured those. And in an earlier version of this, we had commercial and industrial separated, and those things. Who did you measure, Roger? That it was DeLong's, wasn't it, that exceeded it?
No, it was Cole County
Cole County
Industries,
okay.
the ready-mix plant, and measuring as the code listed, you measure 5 feet off the property line, and their ready-mix plant is right on the edge of Industrial Drive there, so that sound level that I was getting there at their plant was 78, which would have exceeded what was listed in industrial at that time.
So staff kind of felt that we could combine those two and a lot for that. Heath was concerned he wouldn't want to have an industry that's been here for a long time at those sound levels suddenly in violation and having to apply for the variance. And that was fair enough. And really, between industrial and commercial, I would expect industrial to be a bit louder, at least as loud as commercial.
What about East McCarty? Did you go out there, Roger, to that one plant out there?
Yes, I did. They were actually quite a bit quieter. They have.
I didn't know.
They have new equipment and dampening.
Quieter.
And I measured them right at the right-of-way line also, and it was quite a bit less. In fact, They were at 61.
Oh, okay. Thank
And
you.
another example is the quarry. There was some concern about that, and Roger couldn't even get a reading at all from their activities to the point of the street.
Oh, okay. All
so-
right. Okay, questions for Drew? We're not voting tonight, so just really questions for staff. We'll have more comments later. I guess you can make comments now too, but, wow.
You said that you measured 5 feet off the property line. How much does sound diminish? Does it diminish as you get farther away? If you'd have measured across the street, which I presume street's what, 25, 30 feet wide, what's the, how much difference is there by moving back? Any at all?
Yes, as the sound widens out and travels a further distance, it does lessen. I was looking at some of my measurements here to try to give you a good example. I measured the traffic on Missouri Boulevard at a distance of 25 feet, and I got 73. That was an average during the lunchtime. But if you went right up next to the edge of the traffic, I'm sure it was at least 5 decibels louder if you walked right up to the edge of the pavement.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Ralph?
Roger, you actually took quite a few readings around town, didn't you? And got a feel for the noise and what's tolerable and what isn't and that sort of thing. You took quite a few readings, and based on that, you were able to propose the numbers that would perhaps work for this community. Question mark. I'll put a question mark there.
Okay. We did go out and measure because we wanted to find, we had found this ordinance that set limits, and we wanted to get actual sounds in our community to make sure that we were going to be setting a limit that we didn't have all kinds of violations for, that it was normal sounds that you would hear. And that's why I did go out and measure the lawnmowers and traffic on Missouri Boulevard. I measured the quick car wash out on Edgewood because they have a big blower. And they were even well within the limits when you measure them at the point where the noise leaves their property. And that's what we were trying to do. And even like backup alarms on trucks, they can be very much a nuisance. I measured that at a distance of 50 feet away, directly behind the truck, and it was at 83, to give you an example of one that is, you know, up there close to that upper limit for a commercial area. So.
Thank you, Roger.
Next, Dr. Pope.
I've got several questions, several for Drew and then for Janice. Currently, the way these complaints that Mr. Brownstein had, a packet of them, they come in, I see as 2 ways. Someone just simply writes a complaint, it drops into City Hall. Where does it go when it hits City Hall? A complaint.
Well, it
It's
would
probably
depend
more
what
of
it
a-
is, I guess.
It's probably more of a Nathan question, would it not be, Nathan?
Well, it depends what it. I'll go ahead and take a shot, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. If it's in the form of a criminal allegation, it probably goes to the police. But if it's, for example, a dog bark, that would go straight to the prosecutor. If it's a complaint about a city controlled activity, sometimes it would go to the city administrator. Hopefully, when they come in, they talk to somebody, and we send them to the right place.
Okay. We know that some of these complaints have been lodged by calling the police, and they come out and make a report.
Sure.
That's one.
Yes.
And the others are after the fact, when they simply write a letter, call in, or whatever, the day after, or whatever, because these complaints have always been at night about this facility.
Correct.
Do you have a number that you can provide us with, the number of complaints that has precipitated this discussion?
I do not. I don't know whether Roger has.
So, Dr. Pope, I think some of those complaints were actually addressed to us. I mean, as the council, right? Didn't we receive letters from different residents? I was thinking,
sure.
Unless I dreamt that.
I think
thought we
think
did.
actually Mr. Brownstein had given us a
Right,
package
and I
of
think
stuff.
I think he gave us some of those. So
But I mean,
whenever
it
you
was-
say complaint,
by
and
that
I'm
I mean-
assuming that's probably what he was holding was also a lot of the correspondence that people wrote into us.
Well, there were a number of police reports.
Mhm.
There were a couple, reports generated on. I would say not every piece of paper was a different complaint. So I don't know if
Okay,
I'm answering your question or not.
So my next question is, what sort of number of complaints have we had about other venues similar to this? Have
We
have
can
the
get that
police-
information for you.
Have the police gone out on numerous other calls about other other businesses?
I'd have to let the chief answer that.
Chief.
Well, obviously I don't have that knowledge in front of me. I mean, as to how many. It's not unusual to receive noise complaints. What I can tell you is that we can query any location within the city limits, well, actually within the county, and we would be able to provide a number. It'd certainly be easier if we were given a list of specific venues that we could check, but anecdotally, I don't know. Certainly, to my knowledge, there's been nothing as controversial as this one.
Okay.
But to say that we don't have noise complaints regarding other locations, that's probably not true. I'm sure we do, but I don't know that it's presented a controversial issue.
Well, Chief, we know of one complaint about a band operating on the west side one night a year or two ago during the October Festival, don't we?
Yeah, so, I mean, you have those, those things happen. I mean, it's very subjective.
Yeah. So, Roger has gone out and measured Thursday Night Live at so many feet and so many feet, and it was 96 decibels and 105 decibels. Have we had complaints about Thursday Night Live?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
It's because everyone in town is there.
Yeah, there you go. And these complaints that we're receiving about this area are all residential citizens. There aren't other businesses complaining about the noise.
Not that I know of.
Okay. So the next thing that surprises me is the variance in the numbers between, and the example was St. Peter's. And these numbers with our numbers are, in some cases, if it's an algorithm or if it jumps as it does, 200 times as loud, our numbers versus the St. Peter's numbers. So with that in mind, if our goal is to help the people and they're not going to be complaining all the time, it seems like we've designed an ordinance that basically isn't going to correct any of the complaints, because the noise levels that we've put in here, because it's considered a commercial area, even though we know it's highly mixed, it's classified as commercial. This ordinance isn't going to solve any of the complaint problems, because the decibel levels that have been checked on the Thursday night that we sent someone out to check are below the numbers in this ordinance. So we have written an ordinance that the threshold is higher than what we have observed, yet that number that has been documented is the number that's producing all of these complaints. Could we get more? We got these numbers from the witness. Could you get us numbers from other communities that would justify us voting for, in this mixed neighborhood, an 85 decibel level up to 10 o'clock at night? I need something to tell me that's not too loud at night.
I don't know that I can give you what other communities have, whether that justifies it or not. I don't know.
But at least other community standards.
Sure.
Okay.
What I really like about the ordinance, or where the form we got, is I like how it addressed everything and laid it out. The numbers is a strictly policy in my mind, but I can get you what other.
The format is, this is a great
Right.
template for us. But the argument is in the numbers, because that's what people are complaining
Sure.
about, the level of the sound.
Sure. And there's many communities with lower, and some obviously that are similar, and I can get you kind of a. What we can do is try to get your range of them, and you can take a look at them yourself.
Okay. And then my final question to Phyllis is the history, to Janice, sorry. The history of this being predominantly a residential neighborhood with neighborhood businesses, as so many of our neighborhoods have had, to where it was then changed to being listed as a commercial neighborhood, a commercial zone. And what percentage of the lots at this point in time, or the land mass, is still residential and what is commercial?
Well, I'd have to look at my land use map to tell you for certain what the percentage is, but it's probably, it may be half and half. As far as the zoning, the development there actually predates zoning. The land uses, the way cities developed, the neighborhoods were mixed use developments, basically. Businesses were developed and people lived in close proximity to those businesses because we didn't have the predominant form of transportation as the automobile like we have today. So people live very close to the businesses where they work and where they shopped and that sort of thing. On the zoning currently, the commercial zoning probably was derived from a 1970s version plan, and that 70s version plan envisioned large areas of Jefferson City's center as commercial. And so at that time, it was decided that the plan depicted commercial use, and so the zoning ordinance should follow suit, and the land was zoned commercial. And what you see is the legacy zoning. Not all of the uses, in fact, a lot of the uses never converted to commercial. They remained as residential. And so we're living with that scenario today, where we have a very mixed type of land use area.
Well, I know one of our goals is to try to repopulate our city center. And the difficulty we're going to have is if we don't protect the residents at night when they must sleep, we're going to have a problem repopulating these
Right.
core neighborhoods with the residents that will utilize the services, the business services within that small neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
The walkable neighborhood that we studied years ago that had all of the services, churches, schools, within that human scale. And I would hope that we could come up with a number that would make it possible for us to still encourage people to live in the center of the city, in these areas with vibrant businesses, good amenities and attractions for them, like this restaurant and this facility. But there has to, at some point, we've got to make it possible for people to not be disturbed after whatever people decide is right, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and I'm particularly relying on the planning expert to help us know what will work.
Well, in this area, you're really dealing with two diametrically opposed ideas. One is the residential use, and which really takes predominance, the residential use, or you have an entertainment use that has come to the fore in recent years. So you really have two opposing ideas that are clashing on this particular street. So it'll be interesting really to see how it resolves. But the zoning obviously today favors the commercial use, and the zoning has been in place for 50 years.
Janice, I have a question. I was just asking Nathan. He didn't have the answer. I know this went through planning and zoning. How did it come out of planning and zoning? I know a lot of times we'll kind of use that as a barometer on how things went, so to speak. But
Sure.
How'd it go there?
Well, the Planning and Zoning Commission was basically asked to remove the noise section from the zoning code. And there's a section in the zoning code that speaks to industrial production and those kinds of uses, and the noises for those types of industrial uses. And so they were asked to remove that section from the code, and in its place, basically adopt a new code. Well, it wouldn't be the Planning and Zoning Commission that would adopt it. It would be the council that would adopt a new section relating to noise in the nuisance code. So there was quite a little bit of discussion about the various levels of noise in our community and what should be exempted. But none of the commissioners obviously are experts in this field, and so they're relying on the testimony of people in the community and staff. But I do believe they favor having the noise section consolidated in a single chapter that would be easier to administer and easier to interpret.
This is actually a bill in motion, or a ordinance in motion. Ralph, I think you have a comment, and I asked Ralph a question, but go ahead, Ralph.
I just wanted to clarify some information. Dr. Pope, I wanted to let you know that on Friday night, August the 12th, there's also there's a different opinion than what you've heard tonight, and there's the other opinion that you've not heard is that the music was actually very pleasant out on the street.
Were they neighbors feeling that way?
The people on the street. Well, I don't know that we heard from anyone tonight that I know one person lives on the street. I don't know that we heard from anyone tonight that owns property on the street. But also I wanted to let you know, as far as the history of that area, that street, Ash, between McCarty and High Street, a few years ago, was one of the few streets that I would hesitate to go down. And I've grown up in old neighborhoods, and I work in old neighborhoods. But the condition of the houses on that street it was in such disrepair that anything would have been an improvement there. And in fact, I myself looked at those properties for the possible purchase, I don't know, 15 years ago maybe, 20, 15, something like that. And I don't know that it would have been that street would be, I have no reason to think that street would be any different today if it wasn't for O'Donoghue's and the Mission and Prism Brews. With those investments in that neighborhood, there are people in that area now. We've got, it's become the entertainment district in Jefferson City. And there are other houses, what we're calling residential on that street. Some of those either have been or will be converted to commercial. Right now, there's on the other side of, down at the other end of the block, one of the houses is actually used as a office for a construction company now. And there's a lot of money being spent on the house across the street from it. I don't know if it's going to be residential or commercial, but I noticed there's a lot of, it appears to me to be a lot of money being invested there, and I suspect it's going to be commercial. And I expect before long the other houses are going to go to commercial because the property values will be higher that way. I think this neighborhood is in transition, and thank goodness. And I think that it will attract people who are attracted to such a concept. And I don't like to draw, too many comparisons, but my goodness, like I say, I grew up in old neighborhoods and I work in old neighborhoods, and I've spent a lot of working days in Soulard in St. Louis, the Soulard Historic District. And that is one of the most sought after areas of St. Louis now, with the best property values and 1- and 2-story residential structures. And they have restaurants and bars and entertainment on just about every corner, and it works well. I think what we're seeing here is a neighborhood that's in transition, and I compliment the pioneers who have invested in that neighborhood. But in putting this noise ordinance together, Prison Brews, in my opinion, did not play into it. It's intended to be applicable to the entire city, and it's intended to, the intent is to, for it to go into effect without changing people's, without really being noticed, because the noise levels we're talking about are already out there. We're just quantifying the noise levels that are already out there. And again, I'll mention that on that Friday night, other opinion of people on the street was that the music out on the street, it sounded pretty pleasant and not too loud.
I'm going to stay on my left, but I'm heading to my right. Dr. Pope?
Just a minute of comment. I am in no way taking anything away from what's going on Ash Street. I think it's a wonderful project. This 85 decibel level up to 10 o'clock, though, is going to be for all of us across the whole city. If this ordinance right here were nothing other than an ordinance specifically for Ash Street and what it takes to keep that moving in that direction, I wouldn't be as concerned about this. But 85 decibels at 10 o'clock at night, all of the residential areas, say for instance along Truman, if we had an organization along Truman, all of the subdivisions north of Truman, along North 10, all of the subdivisions south of Truman, along Industrial, we know what the unintended consequences have been, what's going on Industrial that we seem to continue to fight with. I'm saying that 85 decibels for the city-wide could ultimately become something that we might have a problem with. But in that particular area, that it's in transition and all that, it's a wonderful project what's going on there. We are at a point though where we're getting all these complaints, and whether they have, however the origin of them can be described, all I know is we have a lot of complaints. We enact this ordinance. If the complaints don't change, we haven't addressed the citizens. But what they're doing there is wonderful. We've done all of this work with Old Town. Much of it was to help out there. But 85 decibels, where many of us live in areas that were very close to commercial areas, because we live in a small town with mixed neighborhoods, and 85 decibels at night, that's my concern. So we got more time to discuss this.
All right. Mr. Rick?
Yes. The three things that I see that are continue to rise up is the magnitude of the complaints that I think Dr. Pope was getting at with the chief. Is this an inordinate amount, or is this kind of common? If this is fairly typical, then we have issues across the city, not just in this one area. Safe levels. I heard a lot of things about safe levels. So as we go through these next few weeks, I'd like to be sure that I'm comfortable with the safe levels with regard to the decibels. And the issue of time, I think, was addressed, and those are the three areas that I think resonate with me. But the one thing that seems to be an issue here, and Janice, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a commercial zoned area, as you mentioned, right? See, I think when people live in a commercial area, they kind of expect that things are going to be louder. We have residents we're encouraging to move downtown, and I heard one loft owner said, well, they have trash trucks run in the morning. Well, you know, that's kind of a part of downtown living and kind of the beat of the city, and certainly the fire trucks run down Main Street, and so to me, the issue that it's in a commercial area, people know willingly that they move into a commercially zoned area, has a higher order of tolerance, or maybe should have. Whereas if this ordinance was next to, if this ordinance impacted a business that was just in a R1 area, I would tend to be real concerned about those levels. That's all my comment.
Good point. So it is in a commercial area. Rick?
Drew, I had a question for you. You had mentioned Cole County Industries. I forgot what you said about that reading. And if you can tell me that, and also how many complaints have been lodged against them?
None that I know of. It was 79. Roger, is that right? Cole County Industries.
Yeah, close enough. 78's what I had.
The reason it makes a difference is in an earlier draft of this, we had the limits at 65 for industrial. So we kind of took that out.
What was that again, Drew? I'm sorry.
Cole County Industries was 78, which in an earlier version of this bill, the industrial limits were at 65. So we kind of took that out because really, I think our feeling is that industrial is probably suited for that level of noise, or at least as much as commercial.
And I'm assuming some of the complaints come from people that they hear this noise, whatever it might be, within their homes. Are they complaining that they hear it outside? Because there's a difference. There's at least. To address Dr. Pope's questions or concerns, at least that's a difference to me. So I'm trying to figure out.
I think most complaints come when people hear the noise from inside their home.
Would that be correct, Michael? Okay, from inside. Okay. Okay. All right. Done to my left, Dr. Pope.
Roger, did you do any ambient noise levels, say at 10 o'clock at night in these neighborhoods? You didn't?
No.
Okay, like in other words, the ambient noise level at Cole County Industries at 10 o'clock at night?
No, that would be a little bit hard to do because, you know, I was measuring right there on industrial, so every time a vehicle drives by, it's going to go up from the vehicle noise going by. So it's a little bit hard to get a background type of noise level, but we could do that if you would like.
Well, the complaints are always lodged at night. They're not about daytime complaints, and so the general overall hum of the city at night is really what is being exceeded that produces these complaints.
Well, and maybe I could just add that the noise level in this room right now, a normal conversation is at the 55 to 60 level.
All right. Anything else on my left? Moving to my right, Mr. Henry.
I guess my concern would be why not try to get these measurements at night between the hours of 8 and 10 to see how what the effect really of that is. As Dr. Pope was saying, considering those complaints are primarily coming from nighttime, I'd like to see how those measurements are at night actually.
Okay. Carrie, did you have anything? Mr. Scrivener.
I think that probably Janice nailed the issue when she said that we have two diametrically opposed situations here, and that I'm not sure a noise ordinance, even though I like the format, if you will, I like the outline of what you have. I can't get my hands and arms around what is the appropriate decibel level. I think that several times Mr. Brownstein expressed annoyance, and annoyance can come at a lot of levels. I've been in a motel room at night, and the people out on the patio were just talking and laughing and what have you. And I don't know what the decibels were of that, but I can guarantee you I was plenty annoyed. And it seems to me that the problem is that in this modern society, what is appealing about bands is loudness. And so if you're going to have a band at you want it to come and be loud. By the same token, if you put your ordinance to where you have 75 decibels or 65 with spikes to 75, I doubt that very many people would want to listen to a band that is playing at that level. I don't know what that level would be. I don't know how you would get a band to go down to that. So what we're really the fundamental question here is, are we going to allow outdoor bands in the city close to residential areas? Whether that residential area residence is in a commercial area or wherever it is I mean, that's really the question that we're asking ourselves here, because bands can't perform. They can, but they're not going to perform at 65 to 75 decibels. So if you put it at 65 to 75, you've just eliminated the band. If you put it at 85, then you are saying we don't care if that noise resonates through a residential neighborhood. I mean, it's really, to me, it's about that simple. And it's not a simple, I don't have a simple answer. I don't know where I come down on this, but I think that's really the question that you're asking, or that's the question we're being asked to address.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank everyone for their comments.